The rain was coming down in sheets, each drop a tiny hammer against the diner's already rattling windows. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and frying onions, a comforting aroma that usually soothed my late-night anxieties. Tonight, though, a knot of unease had been tightening in my stomach since Mrs. Henderson, the graveyard shift waitress, had given me that long lingering look as I paid my bill. "Be careful out there tonight, dear," she'd said, her voice a low rumble like distant thunder. "Something feels restless." I'd chuckled, attributing it to the storm raging outside. "Just the weather, Mrs. Henderson. My old Ford can handle a little rain." Now, standing beside my car in the deserted diner parking lot, the rain plastering my hair to my forehead and soaking my clothes in seconds, Mrs. Henderson's words echoed with a chilling resonance. All 4 of my tires were flat. Not just a slow leak, but completely, maliciously deflated. A wave of annoyance washed over me, quickly followed by a prickle of something darker. This wasn't random. The diner was miles from town, the only building for stretches of winding, tree-lined highway. Who would bother to flatten all my tires out here in the middle of a storm? My phone, predictably, showed no signal. Great. Stranded, soaked, and with a growing sense of dread. The darkness beyond the reach of the diner's weak security light seemed to press in, alive with the rustling of unseen things and the relentless drumming of the rain. I scanned the surroundings, my heart beginning to pound against my ribs. The highway was empty in both directions, the taillights of the last passing car long gone. The woods bordering the parking lot looked black and impenetrable, the trees swaying like skeletal figures in the wind. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the scene in a stark, unsettling tableau. For a split second, I thought I saw movement at the edge of the trees, a dark shape that vanished as quickly as it appeared. But Mrs. Henderson's warning, the flat tires. It all felt connected. Ignoring the rational part of my brain screaming at me to stay put, to wait for the storm to ease, I felt an overwhelming urge to get away from the car, from the open parking lot. The woods, despite their menacing appearance, offered a strange sort of cover. With a final, wary glance around, I plunged into the darkness between the trees. The undergrowth snagged at my jeans, the branches clawed at my face. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and decaying leaves. The sounds of the storm were amplified here, the wind howling through the canopy, the thunder cracking directly overhead. I stumbled blindly through the trees, my only guide the occasional flash of lightning that painted the woods in stark white and deep black. Each flash revealed a chaotic landscape of twisted trunks and tangled vines, and each time, my eyes strained to see if anything was following me. The ground sloped downwards, and I found myself sliding and scrambling, the fear lending me a desperate kind of energy. I had no idea where I was going, only that I needed to put distance between myself and that parking lot, that car. Another flash of lightning. This time, I saw it clearly. A figure, tall and dark, standing at the edge of the woods where I had entered. It was just a silhouette against the pale light, but there was something about its stillness, its unwavering gaze in my direction, that sent a bolt of pure terror through me. I didn't think, I just ran. Deeper into the woods, the trees becoming denser, the darkness swallowing me whole between the lightning flashes. Thorns tore at my skin, roots tripped me, but I kept going, fueled by a primal fear I had never known before. The sound of snapping twigs behind me sent a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. I wasn't alone. Something was following me. My breath came in ragged gasps, my lungs burning. The rain plastered my hair to my eyes, blurring my vision. I had no sense of direction, no idea how far I had run. All I knew was the pounding of my heart and the terrifying certainty that I was being hunted. I veered sharply to the left, hoping to throw off whoever was behind me. The terrain became steeper, the ground slick with mud. I slipped and fell, the impact knocking the wind out of me. For a moment, I lay there, stunned, the rain washing over my face. Then, the sound of approaching footsteps, heavy and deliberate, jolted me back to reality. I scrambled to my feet, my muscles screaming in protest, and continued my desperate flight. The woods seemed to go on forever, an endless maze of trees and shadows. The storm raged around me, a deafening symphony of wind and thunder. Each crack of lightning felt like a spotlight, exposing me for a fleeting second before plunging me back into darkness. I stumbled upon a small, rocky stream, the water icy cold as it soaked my already drenched shoes. I splashed through it, hoping the sound of the rushing water would mask my movements. On the other side, the trees thinned slightly, and I found myself in a more open area, a small clearing dotted with large boulders. Panting, I crouched behind the largest boulder, trying to catch my breath and listen. The only sounds were the relentless rain and the howling wind. Had I lost them? Or were they just waiting? A low growl, close by, answered my question. It wasn't human. It was deep and guttural, sending shivers down my spine. My blood ran cold. What was out here? Another flash of lightning illuminated the clearing. I saw it then, its eyes glowing red in the darkness, its teeth bared in a silent snarl. It was big, much bigger than any dog I had ever seen, with thick, matted fur the color of shadow. Fear lent me a new burst of speed. I scrambled out from behind the boulder and ran again, my bare hands scraping against the rough stone. The creature was fast, its heavy paws pounding on the wet earth behind me. I could feel its hot breath on my heels, hear its guttural snarls just inches away. I risked a glance over my shoulder and saw its massive form lunging. I ducked just in time, feeling the wind of its passage as it snapped its jaws. The chase continued, a desperate dance of survival in the heart of the storm-ravaged woods. I dodged trees, leaped over fallen logs, my body pushed to its absolute limit. My lungs burned, my muscles ached, but the terror of what was behind me kept me going. I came to a steep incline, the ground treacherous with loose rocks and mud. I scrambled upwards, my hands finding purchase on roots and branches. The creature was close behind, its heavy breathing a terrifying soundtrack to my ascent. Reaching the top, I found myself on a narrow ridge, the wind whipping around me. On either side, the ground dropped away sharply into the darkness. It was a dangerous place to be, but it offered a momentary respite. I huddled against a rocky outcrop, trying to make myself as small as possible. The creature emerged from the trees below, its red eyes scanning the ridge. It paused, its massive head turning from side to side, its nostrils flaring as it caught my scent. A low growl rumbled in its chest, a sound that vibrated through the very air. It began to move along the ridge towards me, its powerful legs carrying it with surprising agility. I knew I couldn't outrun it on this narrow path. I had to find a way to escape, to defend myself. But against a creature like this, what could I possibly do? Desperation clawed at me. My eyes darted around, searching for anything that could help. My hand closed around a loose rock, sharp and jagged. It was a pathetic weapon, but it was all I had. The creature was getting closer, its shadow stretching long and distorted in the flickering light of the storm. Its teeth were bared, its snarl a promise of violence. I braced myself, my heart pounding in my chest, the rock clutched tightly in my hand. This was it. This was how it ended. Alone, hunted, in the middle of a raging storm. Just as the creature lunged, a deafening crack of thunder split the air, followed by a blinding flash of lightning that illuminated the entire ridge. In that split second of intense light, I saw something else. Beyond the creature, down the steep slope on the other side of the ridge, I saw a faint light flickering through the trees. A light that wasn't the cold, white light of lightning. A warm, inviting glow. Hope, fragile but persistent, flickered within me. A chance. Maybe, just maybe, a chance. As the darkness returned, I didn't hesitate. With a surge of adrenaline, I threw the rock at the creature, hitting it squarely in the side. It roared in pain and surprise, momentarily stunned. Taking advantage of the distraction, I turned and plunged down the steep slope, the loose rocks and mud sliding beneath my feet. Branches whipped at my face, but I didn't slow down. The light below was my beacon, my only hope. I tumbled and slid, the descent brutal and uncontrolled. But I kept my eyes fixed on the light, willing myself towards it. The sounds of the creature's angry roars faded behind me, replaced by the pounding of my own heart and the frantic rush of adrenaline. Finally, bruised and bleeding, I burst through the trees and into a small clearing. And there it was. A cabin, its windows glowing with a warm, golden light, smoke curling from its chimney. A wave of relief washed over me, so intense it almost buckled my knees. I stumbled towards the cabin, my voice hoarse as I cried out for help. The door creaked open, and a figure stood silhouetted against the warm light. It was an old woman, her face etched with wrinkles, her eyes sharp and intelligent. She held a lantern in her hand, its soft glow illuminating her kind but wary expression. "Lord have mercy," she whispered, taking in my disheveled and bloodied appearance. "What in God's name happened to you, child?" I could only stammer, my words tumbling out in a rush of fear and exhaustion. "Something. In the woods. Chasing me." The old woman's eyes widened, and she quickly pulled me inside. The cabin was small but cozy, a fire crackling merrily in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the log walls. The air was warm and dry, a welcome contrast to the cold, wet terror of the woods. She helped me to a chair by the fire, her touch surprisingly strong and gentle. She didn't ask many questions, just moved quickly and efficiently, bringing me a thick woolen blanket and a mug of hot sweet tea. As the warmth seeped into my chilled bones and the tea calmed my racing heart, I slowly began to recount my terrifying experience, the flat tires, the feeling of being watched, the monstrous creature in the woods. The old woman listened intently, her expression grave. When I finished, she nodded slowly, her eyes filled with a knowing sadness. "The woods can be a dangerous place, especially on a night like this," she said softly. "There are things out there that we shouldn't cross paths with." She told me her name was Alara, and she had lived in this cabin for many years, a solitary existence deep in the heart of the forest. She rarely had visitors, especially not ones who stumbled out of the storm-ravaged woods half dead with fear. As the night wore on, Alara tended to my wounds, her movements practiced and sure. She told me stories of the woods, of strange creatures and ancient legends, her voice a soothing balm against the lingering terror. I learned that the area had a long history, whispered tales of things that roamed the shadows, creatures that were neither fully animal nor fully human. Tales that I had always dismissed as folklore, until tonight. The storm eventually subsided, the first rays of dawn filtering through the cabin windows. Alara helped me clean my clothes and gave me a pair of her late husband's boots, which were several sizes too big but infinitely better than my soaked sneakers. As the light grew stronger, I felt a sense of urgency to leave, to get back to civilization, to try and make sense of what had happened. Alara didn't try to stop me, but her eyes held a hint of warning. "Be careful on your way back," she said, handing me a sturdy wooden walking stick. Whatever was out there last night might still be around. She walked me to the edge of the clearing, pointing me in the direction of a faint trail that led deeper into the woods. "This path will eventually lead you to a logging road. Follow that, and you'll reach the main highway." I thanked her profusely, my gratitude immeasurable. She had given me shelter, warmth, and a sense of safety when I had been utterly lost and terrified. As I started down the trail, I glanced back at the cabin, a small beacon of hope in the vast wilderness. Alara stood in the doorway, watching me go, her silhouette framed against the warm glow of the morning light. The woods looked different in the daylight, less menacing, but still carrying an undercurrent of unease. The trees dripped with moisture, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and pine. The trail was narrow and winding, but it was a path, a sign that I was heading somewhere. The walking stick Alara had given me was a welcome support, helping me navigate the uneven terrain. As I walked, my mind replayed the events of the previous night. The flat tires, the shadowy figure, the monstrous creature with glowing red eyes. It felt like a nightmare, but the cuts and bruises on my body were a stark reminder that it had been real. What had that creature been? Maybe a bear or a wolf. It had moved with a speed and ferocity that seemed beyond any normal animal. And those eyes. That chilling, intelligent gaze. Alara's stories echoed in my mind, the ancient legends of the woods. Could there be some truth to them? Could there be things living in these remote areas that science couldn't explain? The thought sent a fresh wave of unease through me. I quickened my pace, eager to put as much distance as possible between myself and the darkness of the woods. The trail eventually led me to a rutted logging road, overgrown with weeds but clearly a path of human making. I followed it for what felt like hours, the silence of the woods broken only by the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. Finally, in the distance, I heard the faint sound of traffic. The highway, finally civilization. A surge of relief washed over me, so potent it almost brought me to my knees. As I reached the edge of the woods and stepped onto the familiar blacktop of the highway, the morning sun felt warm on my face. A car passed, the driver giving me a curious look. I must have looked a mess, my clothes torn, my face scratched, Alara's oversized boots clomping on the asphalt. I walked along the shoulder of the road, my thumb outstretched, and it wasn't long before a pickup truck pulled over. The driver, a burly man with a friendly face, looked at me with concern. "You all right, friend? You look like you've been through the ringer." I managed a weak smile. "My car broke down. Long night,